Okay, folks. Where's these super readers at? There we go. We're going to need them. All right, back to working on these German half-tracks. A slew of German half-tracks. So these have just had the wash done to them. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to brighten them up. We're going to need to make them look a little bit more like this instead of being so dreary looking. Well, we're going to do that by taking the base color and adding a highlighter color, which is buff, which is a really similar color to dark sand that we've been using for the desert, but it's got a little bit more yellow in it. So we're going to mix those two. And this is super, super watery. The base color is super, super watery. This is actually what it's been primered in. The base color of them. All of them, actually. And we want to get a dry brush that's not too in your face big. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and take some hand sanitizer to this. Get all this stuff off. We want the bristles to stick together, not to stick together. And neutralize it with some water. About a 50-50 mix. Get almost all of it out, and we're going to start with the running gear. A little bit more buff than that. What happens is this paint's actually a little too wet to dry brush. Really to paint on. I'm not a fan of painting this, even though it says brush and airbrush. You don't want to brush this on. Only recommend brushing that on people that you hate. I don't like that guy. Hey, you should try doing this. It'll frustrate the hell out of you. Whoa, too bright. You don't want the change to be too drastic. You also don't want it to be too subtle because then you're not highlighting anything. Am I painting models I've already made, or are you just painting ready-made bases? So I build a lot of models, and I also I paint all my stuff. So these were unpainted. They were, well, they used to be gray. Do I have one here that's unpainted? They were just gray. They're 3D. These are actually 3D printed. And they do come in multiple pieces, but not so much like a model. You know, they might come in like 7 or 8 pieces as opposed to 53. And I don't mind putting models together, but you know what's happened is these were actually given to me. I had a friend that I met on my trip recently, and he surprised me with bringing me some stuff that he 3D printed. I don't 3D print, but I do build models. But you know what? Models have gotten really expensive. Like a model of something like this might be $30. You know. So We've got a whole slew of 1/72nd scale. So right now we're painting. Some people like to build them and not paint them. Some people like to play the game. I like to build them. I mean, I like to paint them. I figure anybody can build them. It's not true, but painting, that's, but we're taking, we just airbrushed some of these yesterday. It looks kind of basic, but when you end up doing the dry brushing and everything, it ends up looking, it smooths out all the edges. And this isn't complete already, but we're getting there. Only military vehicles? Yeah, only military vehicles. You have a couple sets that are 50 or 60 years old, such as the old Airfix Bristol Beaufighter. Oh, yeah. Well, growing up in the late 70s and the early 80s, but really the early 80s when I started building models, Airfix didn't exist here in the United States. It did, but it didn't in such name. Yeah, we got some British stuff too. We got some Crusader tanks, and we got a whole bunch of stuff. Actually, we've got hundreds of them back here. So I need to do an actual video instead of, I've done a couple of walkthroughs with them, but yes, you're British. There's nothing wrong with that. I took a little break from doing the Desert Rats and the Africa Corps, which is what I started working on, and I'm kind of interspersing doing these other things. I'm not one of those people that does Germans, and more Germans, even though that's what I'm working on right now. Because you know what? The Germans have to fight people. So actually, I've got more Soviets than anybody else. So it's all World War II stuff. So, yeah, let me show you since you're British, let me show you your people. Oh, speaking of Airfix, let me flip this around, because I think you get a better picture with it flipping it around. There we go. This is the other side. This is my work area over here. Okay, your people, yay, the good guys. The British aren't always the good guys, but when they're fighting Nazis, they are. Every time. These are some Airfix figures, 1/72nd scale. They paint up. Really, really well. And we got a Matilda back here. Got an A10. Here is the Airfix kit for the Bofors with the cute little Morris truck. Marmon Harrington Mark III. That is a 3D print. Humbers. I love British armored cars. This one took a tumble. This is the old Matchbox. I got it broken, so I figured the best thing I could do is make it an objective. Look at it. It's got the desert. It's got the Jerboa there for the 11th Hussars, which were the first unit in the desert that used these vehicles in Operation Crusader. That's what this is for. This is my Operation Crusader, what I'm building towards. Got some 25-pounders there. Got some Australian infantry. All one scale. Pair of 2-pounders. Quad trucks. Bofors. Got a pair of A13s. Really cool tanks. I like the A13s. And the Bren gun carrier. And here's the bad guys up here. And because they had a destroyed recon vehicle, well, we had a destroyed Africa Corps one as well. Here's the... Whoops. I'm going to drop it on the ground here. This is a 222 armored car. Got to be careful. We don't want to show the crooked spiders on there. They all have them, but these are the vehicles I just finished. Some 15th Panzer Division Panzer IIIs, and these 3D printers are these 3D printed models are insanely detailed. What's up, KK? Hey, keep it down over there. Horch staff car, Panzer I, 231 armored car, a half-track, some Panzer IIs. Yeah, they actually look better in person. Kind of hard to... The lighting in here is pretty darn decent. You just subbed, man, much appreciated. Trying to get to the vaunted 2,000 subs. We're going to do something. I don't know what we're going to do. This is a staff car here. And I actually start by painting these guys Panzer Gray and then dust them up. So anyhow, and of course, we've got, let's see, we got more, where's more of your people? We got some more Brits down here. These actually look incredible. You may not be able to tell in the video. These are some of my, oh, not this one. Only because it's a bad casting. These are the Plastic Soldier Company ones. Yeah, and they all have names. This is a squadron here. This is the 8th Armored Brigade in Normandy. And the color green that I was able to do with these, it's not the American green. It's a different one. It's I do not have a Churchill Mark I. I don't have any Churchills yet. So, you know, so these are the Brits that I have. I actually built them for a scenario that, oh, got some British infantry. I painted these guys a long time. This guy's not British, he's American. What you do? What are you doing here? He's trying to keep you guys from having a British breakfast. Yeah, these are some awesome figures. These are actually white metal figures, and they all have surnames on them. So that's Sharp. Who's this? Corporal Phillips. Yeah, Corporal Phillips. They all have, every one of my figures has names on them, and because it's part of the game. So, so we got a Firefly there, another Firefly there, two M4A4, 4 M4A4s, and 2 Fireflies. That's what I have. It's for a scenario. So, yeah, and we've got the other bad guys, the commie Soviets. Oh, those guys don't belong here. They're from 15mm figures. These are all Soviet stuff. And more Soviets. Soviets. More Soviets. And then the Americans are up here, including some little French vehicles here. Buildings. All 172nd, couple Panther terms. Do I have an M3 Stuart? No, I've got some M5s. I've got 3 Honeys that are, yeah, some buildings down there. And here's the big cats. The ones that everybody likes. More big cats, Panzer IVs back there. And then the early Germans. Tom Cruise, do you happen to have any G.I. Joes? Thank you kindly. I don't. I used to, but I don't. I used to have the 3-inch size figures, I'm not that old, Jesus. Not the really big ones. Yeah, this guy needs to be over in the Dunkelgelb land. So that's what I have. We even got some, I had to move these things. These used to be on the top drawer. We made these things right here. We? Yes, me, myself, and I. We made them. Well, I play a game with these, so if you build a plane, that's fine, but I can't do anything with them. Now, I do have my eye on getting some planes to do an airfield, because one of the things that's important in Operation Crusader is the airfield at City Rosé, and you need to have some Italian and German aircraft that have just been stomped on the ground because the British broke through and destroyed all the planes, many planes on the ground. So I do want to build some crashed planes. See if I can get this in a way that it's not going to fall on my stuff here. I'm just going to flip it. And I do have some Stuarts. I do have some Honeys. They're not complete yet. And I've got more A13s. They also aren't complete. And what I mean they're not complete is, let me show you what stage they're in. Oh, there's one of them right here. Yeah, they've been pre-shaded. These are all going to be, what's it called? Counter. They're all going to be in counter scheme. So, and the A13s, which are a really good looking tank. Even though the wheels look a bit like, we need some more wheels. We'll grab some of those tables over there in a corner and make them out of them. So, anyhow. Yeah, the only thing I don't have a whole lot of is the Pacific. I'm never was really big in the Pacific. You think of making a jet airfield or a propeller airfield? So this airfield is in the desert, and I think it was just like an area that they smoothed. I don't, there was no tarmac. It was just an area where they just smoothed out, and the British launched this offensive and caught everybody with their pants down, so to speak. And the Crusader tanks broke across it and gunned a bunch of the aircraft on the ground, like so they're like destroyed on the ground. And it's a really cool battle that went back and forth a lot for like over a month. So that's what we've been working on, and including a pair of Valentines. Pair of Valentines, which is not my favorite British tank. Not even close. I prefer Matildas, but they use Valentines, so you got to get Valentines. Um, Hermione and Horace. This 8th Royal Tank Regiment was the one that accompanied the New Zealanders, and all of their tanks had names that started with an H. So I do that, but I don't want to paint tanks that actually existed. So I want to use names that could have been. Well, it's like if there's 50 tanks and they only have 6 names recorded. Like, okay, so I'll make up the other whatever ones and we'll use those. Um, the Trop Spitfire. You know that I am a Spitfire lover. Okay, but the tropical Spitfire is the ugliest one because it's got a big chin. It's still an attractive aircraft, although somebody came out on my feed and said they didn't like a Spitfire. Well, that person just needs to be terminated. I don't believe that person is just a troll. Nobody doesn't like a Spitfire. Even people that were shot down by a Spitfire like the Spitfire. And I like Hurricanes too. I don't necessarily like Hurricanes any less. I think the Hurricanes are good looking aircraft. But as I've said before, you haven't heard this. The British have this knack for taking American kit and making it look better. And that's not hard to do because you're like, what do you want to do? Let's just paint that whole thing all in drab and put a star on it and you're good to go. Like, oh, come on, man. You gotta be a little bit more, have a little bit more panache. The Kitty Hawks, I like P-40s, but the Kitty Hawks are a lot better looking than the standard P-40. Same thing with the Shermans. The British did a lot of really cool stuff with the Shermans, made them look better. Between the Mickey Mouse and the stuff that they used in the desert. Um, Hell, they named them, right? Because otherwise we'd be calling it's an M4. Well, what is it? Or like an M1. The M1 is a rifle. And I'm just talking about in World War II, or M3, I'm sorry. M3 is a grease gun. It's a half-track. It's a medium tank, the Lee. It's also a light tank, the Stuart. Like, dude, like, pick other letters and numbers, man. Like, I guess I never was in the Pacific. I thought when I was a kid, I think the Pacific was a bigger deal than it is now. But I mean, I grew up watching stuff like Guns and Averone, so I always saw World War II really from a British standpoint. So I'm not one of those people that's like, hey, World War II started in 1941. No, it didn't. So where were we doing this Kraut bastard? And I don't have a problem putting swastikas and stuff on these things when they use that, but I don't want to show them on film because then you got issues with bots. But I have no problem with doing swastika stuff. And every time I bring these Nazi guys up, I bring up the fact that they're assholes. So, we're not promoting that. Hello. Your neighbor has a half-track something or another. Really? We generally give you a 5-pound super check because all this stuff is so cool, but don't have a bank account at the moment since you're only 13. Well, just subscribe, man. I don't do this for the money. I do this for the camaraderie. So I recently went to Europe for the first time, and we went to the Imperial War Museum. I don't know if you live near London, but I went to the Imperial War Museum, and it was like kids babysitting day when I went there. There's a bunch of 10, 11-year-olds, and they were just all over the place. And I'm sitting there thinking, these kids would really be interested in this stuff if they would have had somebody that was really interested as a tour guide. But you can't have like some woman teacher going in and explaining this stuff to them. Like, you got to have somebody who's like passionate about this stuff, So what I really wanted to go was the Tank Museum, but they put that place way too far away from London, and we just couldn't make it out there. But yeah, this is my idea of, reenacting. Like, you get to learn about history, you get to paint stuff, you know. I even have a Valentine from Tunisia. And yes, they use this pink type camouflage. Let me see if I can. It's almost, they call it desert pink. It's not that pink. It's almost like I don't know, earthy salmon. I think it looks pretty, I think it looks pretty cool. The turrets move? Of course the turrets move. Yep. And they come off. So, yeah. Almost everything I get comes from England or the UK. Um, this scale was always big here in the United States. And then the United States just kind of went to, if you're going to do wargaming stuff, they jumped on the 28 millimeter bandwagon. I didn't, but everything else did. So I'm still stuck with 20 mil, 1/72nd scale, 1/76 scale. That's what I like. And almost everything I get comes from Britain, which is funny because when I was doing 15 millimeter ancients, almost everything I wanted came from Britain, so yeah, Britain is the land of toys. That's what I call it. They had those toy soldiers when I was a kid. I never got any because they were really expensive here in the States, called Britons. And I always wanted them. They're not painted very well, but they are when you're a kid. You don't know any better, but it's like we can paint a lot better than that. But those things were really expensive at the time. And I would have just trashed them as a kid, but so I know when I was a kid, all these models came, if they were airplane models, they came with the crooked spider to put on the tail. And now it's like people are scared of putting that on there. I'm like, I don't want to show it on video because, the bots can come after you. Not normal people. Like normal people that watch this say, we're not a pro dictatorship channel or anything like that. We're not, but if they put the stuff on it, I've got some air recognition flags that I can put on these things, but we're not going to show that on video. You got to explain it basically to in objects. What time is it for me? It is just shy of 8 a.m. But I'm usually on in the mornings. I usually wake up at 5 and I'm usually on by 6. So I'm on by your noon. As a matter of fact, I'd probably say 40% of my subscribers are probably British. Because wargaming is kind of a British thing. It was invented by them. Thank goodness. Somebody had to come up with it. Instead of jumping all around, we're just going to focus on this one. Now, see how this see how this softened up the colors on it? we're going to go up one more, which just means we're going to add a little bit more buff. And we want to make sure that we get almost all of this stuff off. The secret to dry brushing is you have to get almost all of the paint off of the brush, because if you don't, you're not going to get the effect that you think you're going to get. Unless you're trying to make it look like, they took mud and just slopped it all over there, which, there's a time and place for that. We are going to weather these, but we're not going to start with that. $12.54 at night. Oh, man. Don't tell your mom, man. Just tell her, hey, I was watching this channel. He was doing stuff that was really cool. It's going to make me really like history when I grow up. Then you be like me and you can't watch history programming because you pick out all the mistakes and stuff that they got wrong. You're already up without permission. Shh, I won't say anything. And then there's other weathering that we're going to do. We just softened up that camouflage nicely and made it look how we changed the color significantly. Now it looks more in line with these here. Now, the most painstaking thing I do, and also the one I enjoy the most, is black lighting. And some people might think, oh, that's just a waste of time. It makes a difference because you want to be able to see all these cool details that they put on this thing from across the table. Not just be like, hey, it looks good up close, but far away it looks bad. Or, hey, it looks good up far away. Oh, but don't get too close. It looks like crap. Well, I'm nearsighted, so I can't pull the wool over my eyes, so to speak. I can't fool myself into thinking it. So it's got to look, for me, it's got to look good far and away. Far and close, sorry. Far and away. They're the same bloody thing. Do you watch Growling Sidewinder? No, I've never heard of them. I used to play those flight simulator games, but I don't like the historical games because a lot of the people that I've encountered, they don't know anything about history. They don't want to know anything about history. It's just a game to them. So I have this headset that's virtual reality, and I have a couple of airplane games, and one of them they came out with was a World War II plane game. You can fly in a Spitfire in one of those, and it works really well. And you can have hundreds of planes in the air at the same time, and it runs really smooth. So I'm like, cool, I'll be able to talk about World War II stuff with these folks. Nope, they don't know. They don't know jack shit about it. To them it's just a game like they could be playing Fortnite, wouldn't matter to them. And that's just a shame because the Second World War is super, 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 super interesting. And there's so much stuff available. There's so much stuff available to read that from different angles that didn't exist 20 years ago. What's the game? I have a MetaQuest 2 and I'll try to get it. It's excellent. And I do not get motion sickness because if I did, I'd hurl. It is called, they have a World War I one, and this is the second one. It has a really basic sounding name. Let me pull it up on the computer. I highly recommend it. No, I don't want to make changes. I'm not connected to a printer. Would you hate it when the computer talks back to you? All right, so we're going to go MetaQuest flight game. It's not Ultra Wings. I have a jet one. I'm not into modern stuff. Oh man, I need to look at pictures, images. Okay, this is the World War I game. What's it called? People and their cookies. World War I fighters. Okay. And they make a Pacific one as well, a World War II one. But the World War One, I mean, it's really good. Like you could track somebody. And what's really neat about the flight simulator, I think the other one is just called the World War II. If you find that one, you'll be able to find the other one. What's really unique about it is, in a flight simulator, and I played a lot of flight simulators, you can only see what's in front of your guns. But this allows you to like look, like if you're in a tight turn, you can look and see what's coming up before it reaches your guns. Or you could like pass somebody and like keep an eye on them. It's really pretty good. No, you don't need any gear. No. There's a guy that actually made um he made a joystick. I saw a picture of it out of a plunger, you know, like for a toilet, and like strapped it to it. So he's got literally a stick that he plays with, but you don't need that. It feels enough like a stick when you're playing it. It runs, it's certainly worth $20 or 15 quid, you know? Definitely worth it. And it runs really well. Really, really well. So I recommend that. And you can play your people. Can't play any French though. You can only play Germans and Brits. I wanted to play a French guy, so I could just make this annoying accent the whole time I was playing. You know? I could just be silly. I could just be silly like that. So they don't have any Newports or can't remember if you can play a Spot or not. The World War II one I think is called Warplanes World War II, but it's only the Pacific. So, you know, they have P-40s, P-51s, P-47s, Wildcat, Hellcat, the Japanese planes, and they have a Spitfire as well. You may have to go through a strange way to get the World War II one. Like I don't know a whole lot about the stuff. I knew that it was a little difficult getting some game that I wanted. Like it wasn't an official one, so I had to go through you know within the MetaQuest and go somewhere else to unlock or something, and it was available that way. Like it didn't show up in the store automatically. So check it out, man. Definitely check them out. And one thing about the MetaQuest, you probably already know this already, but any videos that you watch of the MetaQuest in action don't look like it looks like when you have it on. When it looks like that you have it on, it looks much better. So, you know, I don't have a whole lot of things for it. It's kind of limited in what's available, and I feel like it's a lot of work to come out with new products for it, and they haven't done a very good job of it. I got this zombie game that is just way too freaking stressful, which I guess that means it's, you know, enjoyable because like, man, you like failing a morale check, you know? but they look pretty good. And the playing game, man, if you get motion sickness, you don't want to play that. But I don't get motion sickness, obviously, because it doesn't affect me at all. Definitely worth $20. I've bought games for a lot more than $20 and they end up being duds. Yeah, so you got to make these little things pop out so you can see them. You find zombie games absolutely terrifying. Well, I'm not scared of zombies, man, but it's stressful. Like I was playing this game that wasn't even a zombie game. It was just one of those, Counter-Strike type of, anti-terrorist type things. And I don't remember what it's called. It's on MetaQuest or whatever. And you start in this lobby, and in this lobby where there's like this console, different computers and stuff, and you got your AR and your pistol, and it's very like realistic. Like it's easy to pull things out, and it feels real. Reloading's a little clunky. It's easier to reload a real weapon than it is some of these virtual weapons. But anyways, it's a little clunky, but still the aiming and everything's really natural. You can put two hands on it, right? You bring both hands up and you have both hands on the gun. It's pretty immersive. And I mean, I just got in the game and I'm like in this lobby trying to, figure things out or whatever. And I go and there's this button on this table. And and I go and I press the red button. And the next thing you know, I hear this siren and I hear these doors opening. And this room was pretty big. It was maybe 50 meters across the room or something like that. And I hear, and I basically like unlocked these zombies to come in this room. And I don't know how to fire these weapons. Like I literally just got them, and I'm like trying to figure out how to manipulate these things. And I got zombies coming at me. I quit the game and returned it. It was way too stressful. It was way too stressful. You know, I'm not necessarily scared of freaking zombies, but it's like I could swing a bat in real life. I can't even wipe my ass in this game. I'm like I don't need that. I'm like, oh, back you go. I don't remember what it was called, but it wasn't a zombie game per se. It was just it had a zombie mode. Oh God, if you play for them, you can't return it either, can you? You can. You can if you play them for a very short amount of time, which is fair. They might give you something and then, oh, this didn't work well. Let me get my money back. You play it for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something like that, you could return it. It's enough to figure out, okay, these menus are no good, what have you. So, but this other game that I have, which is the Walking Dead one, it actually looks, if you watch the videos, it doesn't look very good. And it's a zombie game and it's also an exploring game. But there's a couple things that make the game really, really stressful. What's up, Luke? There isn't even, there may have been, but man, I was just like, I don't mind going through the tutorial, but it's like, here's some guns and oh yeah, by the way, here's some zombies. It's my own fault for pressing the button. But I'm like, that's way too stressful. But the Walking Dead game actually does have a tutorial on how to use the guns and everything, and they look real. You hold on to it. It's got the serial number on it and everything. And it looks really good. The problem with the Walking Dead game is every single item you use wears out as you use it. So if you find a baseball bat, you can, to put it into perspective, you have a baseball bat, you can probably bash in 6 zombies and then you have to buy a new baseball bat. So how do you buy a new baseball bat? Well, you have to craft them. Well, how do you craft them? You have to get items. So you're constantly going around the ground and you're picking up things and you're literally doing this motion. You're putting them in your backpack. And it's really natural. It feels supernatural. Like you go, you reach down, you press like the trigger that grabs the item, you put it in your back, you let go of the trigger, it drops it in. It's super fluid. The problem with that is that it feels very real. You're doing a lot of things that seem like you're there. So when you encounter something that is startling, I wouldn't say scary, but startling, it can make you fail a morale check. Um, and the problem with that game is so everything wears out in that game. It's a good game, but you have to understand there's everything wears out. So you have to constantly find new things, or you're going to run into problems because you can't just fist fight them kind of thing. You have a watch, and you go to a new level to explore like this area where you would find different things and stuff. And you have about 15 minutes of real time, of like the time, of our time, until you need to leave that level because the zombies come out and another day has passed. So you're constantly on this like Fortnite where you're constantly being rushed. Now, I don't play Fortnite, but I know that it reduces the map. And so it's like, dude, man, give me a second to breathe. There's no time for that, right? So that's very, very stressful. What am I painting? I'm painting some German half-tracks, baby. Yeah, we have a whole platoon of these guys. More than a platoon, actually. Um, so you have that time thing. You have the wear and tear on the weapon. But you go on this level. It's basically in flooded New Orleans. So you go on this thing, and your level starts basically, you get off this raft, and boom, you're here, right? All right, so you look around. I can go left, I can go right. This area is. So I'm very methodical about playing those games. I'm like, all right, you don't want anybody to get behind you. So you're like, all right, let me clear this way. Okay, there's nobody over here. You go down this corridor, nobody there, and you come back. And I realized that the game cheats and guys can appear in places you've already cleared. And that and the time thing and is extremely stressful. It's extremely stressful. So I was actually pretty far along in that game until I turned a corner and I'm dealing with 6 zombies and nowhere to run. Like I can maybe manage 2 at the same time. It's like, it's just way too stressful. So, and I see these things all the time where people will complain, oh, the game's too easy, or whatever. And I'm thinking, I don't want to play a game that's a cakewalk, but I also don't want to try to beat my head against the same thing like 12 times and not succeed because I bought this effing game, right? And I have a stressful job and I don't need that. And I'm thinking, these people that want these really stressful games, you need to just get a job, man. You need to get out of mom's basement and get a job. I mean, I used to play with a guy who didn't want to play things that were too competitive. He wanted everything to be basically like a gimme. Well, I don't want that. But I don't want something that's just like unbeatable, you know? All right, man. Thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. Yeah, just come on here and hang out and talk about different shit, doesn't have to be World War II stuff. You get that magic 2,000 subs. I'm about 10 away. The first 1,000 is actually faster than the second 1,000, but hey, we just do our thing. I try to do this as often as I can. This is my yoga. And everything goes well here, you know. It's a little slow, but that's okay, you know. And I give away all my secrets. All this stuff that I paint, it's all on here. What's up, Rick? What do you think is the vertical streaming the way to go for views? Okay, so here's what I've been able to figure out. Why are you asking me? You got 5 times more subs than I do. Okay, so here's what I figured out. I tried a couple different things. The amount of views on the vertical stream just went like 1, 2, about 5 minutes in, it jumps to like in the 50s. I'm like, why? Well, it's being recommended to a lot of people that, which is cool. I mean, I've actually had a couple people on here that were into historical stuff and wouldn't have seen my channel otherwise. So I think there's some bump that it's getting because it's considered like a short. And Facebook, I know it's called Meta. It's always going to be Facebook for me. Sorry, you guys should have called it something else to begin with. Sorry, Zuck. Not Facebook, but YouTube. Sorry, too much coffee. It's considered like a short, and I think that YouTube is promoting shorts right now. So you're getting a bunch of bumps in it. Now, the problem with having a vertical feed for me is it's kind of limited in scope, as you can see. So I experimented and changed this horizontal. So I actually changed this into a horizontal. I started the video horizontally. Orientation is locked. I didn't get so it specifically wants to be vertical. I tried to do vertical on the computer. That didn't help. The problem with a mobile connection is it's automatically dumbed down at 720p, which was good if it was 2005, but it's no longer 2005. 720 doesn't cut it. So you're actually seeing this at a crappier resolution than, I mean, my phone could do 8K, but that's all I've been able to figure out. There's a huge bump in views. And I mean, literally, I've started doing the verticals now for 2 weeks, and I've probably gained 50 subscribers in 2 weeks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is for me, so it's getting exposed to a lot of the people out there. And it's just a shame that it does that at a crappy quality, and I tried asking around online to see what's going on. And so it's not only vertical, but it's also a mobile connection. So they want both. If you do mobile connection horizontal, it's no better than the computer, like number of people coming in. 80p should be standard. Absolutely. Vertical streaming is better because vertical streams can pop up in shorts, which most people watch today, but horizontal streams can't appear in short for you pages. When am I going to go live again? Tomorrow morning or so in about 9 hours. I'm usually on at by 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, even on work days, every day of the week. This is what I do, I could get up and exercise, but we do that when you get home from work, if I do it. So just be consistent. Just be consistent. And one of these guys, and I don't ever watch their videos, but I subscribe to a couple of channels of how to get more viewers and how you can do this and what's the those guys that just make videos on how to make more videos. You know what the guys I'm talking about. I mean, they do really professional videos. And one of the things that they always say is that if you want more subscribers, just do what you do, and people are going to show up. And that's I do what I do, and if people like this, cool. And if they don't, well, then they can go do something else. But most people don't have an attention span. Yeah, you guys need to work on that, man. I do not have ADD. I've done one of these videos for like 11 hours straight. This is therapy. Okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow morning, Harry. Yeah, if you're in Britain, you'll like my streaming times because it's Britain friendly. It's really unfriendly for Rick because Rick is like, you're 2 hours behind me, right? So, yeah, unless you want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're up a creek. Although you were on the other night, I got up earlier than normal on my own, and you had just posted a post on something, and I'm like, that MFer is probably still gaming at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was something like that. Or like, it was just some crazy time. I was going to comment on your burger. The best burger you ever ate was from Hardee's. How are you alive, man? How did that not kill you? 1 a.m. time is the only incorrect time for you. It's funny because Britain ain't friendly. Well, I spent 48 hours there and everybody there was friendly. New York isn't friendly. That's like a den of assholes. I like Britain, or at least for the 48 hours I was there, except for the driving on the wrong side of the road. That's garbage. You guys have to fix that. Everything else, I'm fine with everything else. I'll be in New York, but only the countryside. Yeah, don't. Yeah, we mean the city. You know what it is? It's a bunch of. It's like people that want to fight you, and you haven't even met them. Like, man, let me at least meet you and realize I don't like you before we're gonna get in a fight. I'm gonna fight all of you. I'm like, well, listen, dude, man, chill out. Well, the people in Britain say, oh, well, we drive on that side because, swords. I'm like, all right, do I get to drive with a sword? Because, I mean, there could be some compromise then, because that could be handy, like somebody cuts you off, you cut them off. No, you can't have swords in Britain. Well, okay, well, there's no point, there's no reason to do it then, right? Because, I mean, if I'm going to drive my Subaru and get to carry a saber, okay, I could see there'd be some compromise here. If I'm carrying a saber, I'm wearing a uniform and I'm designing it. Oh man, no, I thought Britain was pretty cool. Except that curse, they put a curse on that island. Somebody in ancient times in ancient Britain must have pissed off the gods because there is the cloud cover that's between 2,000 feet and 8,000 feet is just like perpetual. It's like, meanwhile, up here the sunshine, you come through the clouds and it's like, meanwhile, in this alternate universe, I'm like, what the heck? It's just really, really weird. It's okay because it was like cool, but, it's dreary. So it means I got to eat ice cream all the time to stay happy. Which island? Britain. Yeah, I flew over Britain and it was all covered in fog. It's like really, really weird. All right, man. Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by, man. So yeah, getting back to Rick, what I was saying. That's what I could figure out. Is it suggests it to a lot of people, and which is good because there might be people that are interested in something of this that wouldn't know about it. Um, but I have a feeling that you need to jump on that bandwagon now because if they're not pushing the short, I don't like the shorts. I don't like things that are too short because I swear they just cause ADD in people. Like you got to have like the patience to like, and I'm guilty of it as well. I'll watch a video and after a few minutes, I'm like, I don't like this guy's delivery. I'm going to go somewhere else. And there might be lots of people that don't like my program. That's fine. I do this for me. I do this to stay engaged. You know, you have no problems with Americans apart from the ones who make fun of our accent. Um, we make fun of every accent. So that's what the world needs. We all need to make fun of each other again. If you hate short things, you would hate Ewoks. Yeah, they're furry in all the wrong places. Chota! Uh, I remember growing up, everybody thought, oh man, the Ewoks are stupid. I said, whoop, well, that's still better Star Wars than the other stuff. But I've given up on I've given up on watching any of that stuff. I also realized, Harrison Ford was a cool guy because of the two characters that he played, but he's really, man, he's like an asshole in interviews. Good old laughter never hurts anyone. Yeah, that's how it used to be. You guys have some accents over there that are difficult. But the thing is, we're not exposed to them. So there's a couple of the accents in Britain that one of the problems is that they they don't pronounce all of the letters. So if we're not familiar with to fill in the blanks in our mind as you're talking, we don't know what you're talking about, you know? Um, yeah, he's really good in those two characters, or maybe even when he played Jack Ryan, okay? Those two, those three, and he's like, now he's just like a crotchety old scumbag. Like he's not even like all there. It's like everything's too much trouble. I said, okay, well, if it's, and I know that's kind of his shtick, but it's not endearing. So World War II started us thinking Hitler's uprising was a joke till it was too late. Scottish. What do you think about, well, I don't know how old you are, Millsy, but Harrison Ford just did a series of commercials. True story. I just saw them recently. They're almost like movie quality commercials for a Scotch brand, or as you guys call it, whiskey, without the E. Glenmorangie, something like that. Anyways, I'm like, what's Harrison Ford doing selling Scotch stuff? I'm like, but leave that to you guys to do it. Do they really need Harrison Ford selling Scotch? You want to sell Scotch? Get one of them cute Scottish lasses and put them in a mini kilt. That's what sells Scotch. Unless you're into dudes, in which case that doesn't work for you, but is it just me, or does the Welsh accent sound like a cat danced on a keyboard? I know one person that's Welsh, and they don't have a bad accent, and they're not difficult to understand. So my daughter recently, true story, recently went to, she's studying abroad in Spain, and she just recently went for a long weekend to Scotland, to Edinburgh, and she had a great time. Wish I could have gone, but gotta be her working. I mean, language and writing. Hypothetical dog, we don't like people mocking our accent. Yeah, just mock theirs. Pass it on. When I play games, I say things in the accent of the guys I'm playing if the situation arises. Not the entire freaking game, okay? That's weird, okay? That's some LARPing people, right? LARPing weirdos. I'm just saying, there's times where, something happens in the game and you need to throw out a message for you, son. You need to throw something out that goes with that. And it's not necessarily English or Scottish. It could be French. It could be Italian. It could be, that's just how I play. Winchester, what's up? German half-track, yes. One of many. I went to Spain recently on vacation. A Facebook friend surprised me with a bunch of these castings. And I'm like, all right, we can paint some up. So we're doing our desert project right now. And we're just taking a little break from it in between vehicles. And we're going to do some German half-tracks. And then we'll go back to it. We got a whole host of Crusaders to do. I got 4 more Crusaders to finish up. But, it's kind of a cool process because they end up looking like this. Obviously, but the first, they start off looking like this. Well, they're obviously, that color. And then actually originally the casting is, I don't know, ugly ass brown or something like that. But when you put the base color on it, oh, hold on. Let's put it correctly. When you put the base color on it and then give it that wash, it looks like this. So it changes quite a bit. And let's see if we can, here we go. Changes it to, this lighting is too powerful sometimes. And where's this last one that I did? This one right here. We're not completely done with this one. Look at the little rust stains. Look at that. Makes you want to play a game, doesn't it? Unfortunately, these don't come with a hatch that can be opened. Because I'd like a few of them that have an open hatch, just for looks, All right. Am I doing Italian tanks? Yes, I will be doing Italian tanks as well. The eye ties. I love these Crusaders. And they had mechanical problems, but the German tanks had mechanical problems too. I mean, it's a hostile environment. You don't even have to fight anybody, just driving around in the desert, A lot of these engines are only good for like 200-300 miles. After that, you have to switch out the whole engine. I mean, nobody's tanks were, some of the American tanks were the most reliable ones, and they still were a piece of crap by today's standards. The engines just wear out. Engines would just wear out. And that's without it being, a vehicle like a Panther or something like that was like over designed. In other words, the transmission is designed for, a 30-ton tank and ends up being 45 tons. Even without those issues, a lot of these tanks are just really unreliable. Yeah, it's extremely annoying. Imagine being the guys that have to fix it all the time. Okay, I think we got almost, we got to do the black lining on the back. So a lot of people that do this hobby, I didn't even know that term, wearaboo. We always had people that played war games and always wanted to play the Germans because the German stuff is cool. And the Germans fought in all pit theaters with all different camouflage schemes, and they have cool looking stuff. That's why they're popular. Not that there was like wearaboos and stuff like that, but a lot of these people, even without being a wearaboo, they just do Germans, more Germans, and Germans with the side of German. Like, okay, that's cool, but they have to fight other people. So all your vehicles can't be Germans. They need other stuff. As a matter of fact, most of mine are Soviets. And the Soviets, like the Americans, like, oh, I'll just paint them green and go. I said, well, you're not going to get anybody that's going to want to play Soviets or Americans if you have that attitude. We're just throw shit on them and be done. Probably going to go to bed now. Depending on how I feel, might come back on. It's 1:30 a.m. Man, get some rest. I'll see you in the morning, man. Take 2 aspirin. I'll see you in the morning. I'm not going to blackline the mortar because I want to make sure the mortar wasn't in another color. It's likely that it was in Dunkelgelb by this point, by 1944, but I want to make sure. So we're going to leave that alone. We're going to move on to the. We're going to move on to the. Well, let's do this. Oh no, I've got to dry brush before I do that. Well, this is a really interesting vehicle. I'd like to talk a little bit about this. This is an engineering half track, and I think, well, you're not going to be able to cross a bridge with that, but it's to cross over like trenches and stuff like that, shell holes. It's not like a bridge, okay? But normally in this pintle position, there would be a machine gun that would be in it. Just a MG-34 or later in the war, an MG-42, just in a little gun shield. But they decided to, let me see if I can find it. There she is. They decided to put on some of these, this critter. And this is an extremely interesting weapon. It is called a 28 millimeter squeeze bore cannon. Now, what a squeeze bore cannon is it's 20 millimeters at the end of the barrel, widthwise, but at the back end it's 28. So it actually had a round that, as you fired it, it would pick up velocity by being squeezed out of this barrel. Now, it was a round that used this metal called tungsten in it, and it had a really high muzzle velocity, which meant it could punch through a lot of stuff. It could punch through a lot more stuff than its caliber would give it credit for. A 20 millimeter gun can't go into the kind of armor this thing can, but it also has a life of like 500 rounds or something like that. After 500 rounds, this thing is like the tapering in it is just shot. But the Germans had such a problem procuring rounds for this, procuring the material to make more ammunition for it, that they eventually discontinued it. But that thing could take out light tanks. Probably the side armor on like Sherman. They could probably take out a Sherman on the side. Of course, a half-track encounters a Sherman. It needs to get the hell out of there, right? Like you got no business fighting that. But it's just in case you encounter something like that, But something like this guy is a little bit more useful, even though it has a 75 millimeter gun and doesn't have the muzzle velocity. It's to support the other reconnaissance troops. Is really what it's for. So. I love tanks. I was an artilleryman sitting on the back of an M109, loading and firing that 155 cannon in military service. What's up, Justin? Well, thank you for your service. And yeah, that's freaking loud. How far will a 155 go? 30 clicks? What's the range on one of those? Obviously indirect. You killed 2 paintbrushes today. Uh-oh. Well, don't buy expensive paintbrushes and you'll be all right. Have you used the hand sanitizer trick? It won't save the bristles, and it won't save them from anything else. So let's go back and build this core paint color again. Appreciate you guys being on. I didn't know I was going to be very successful today. How successful I am in the evening completely depends on you guys. Because I could do this thing, I could talk to myself, but if I don't have interaction, I'm just like, okay, well, that's fun. And sometimes I got these peeping toms because I can't tell. Rick probably knows this if Rick is still on, but we can't tell when we're doing a show who's on. We can tell how many people are signed on and supposedly watching it, but we can't tell who they are unless they out themselves, right? Joann's Fabrics has some paintbrushes on sale. 11.2 miles the model I was operating. Joann's Fabrics is going out of business. I heard they're closing all of them. So my daughter had an experience with Joann's Fabrics, and it wasn't a positive one. She just started taking up knitting. She was doing crocheting before, and then she took up knitting, like making little creatures and stuff like that, little cute creatures, just something to fidget while she's watching TV. And I encourage her to be crafty because it keeps us sane, right? So I go to Joann's Fabrics. I like going to Joann's Fabrics. And even though I get harassed by these old women all the time, like, can I help you? Like I'm in the wrong place, like I'm vegan in a butcher shop, like, what are you doing here? I'm like, dude, I'm a crafty bastard. Get off me, lady. But I like going to Joann's Fabrics because there's stuff I can, look. I needed buttons and stuff like, that'd make good shields or, that kind of stuff. I enjoy going to those kind of places, Michael's, so forth. So I go with her to go look for yarn, and there's all these dud yarn things. There's like, like she bought some yarn, a couple different. First of all, it was super expensive, and after we narrowed down what it was, which one she wanted to get, we took it home, and it was like half-ass opened, and we had to go back to it. It's like they had a bunch of like shit products, you know. And they do have models at Joann's Fabrics, but they're like the worst models you could possibly want in your life. There's this company called Atlantis, and like, ooh, they're made in the USA. I don't give a shit where they're made. They're horrible. So they're old models by either Lindbergh or somebody else. And Lindbergh models, their mentality was like, all right, we got this box that's this big. How big can we make this battleship to fit in the box? Well, it's going to be about this size. All right, let's scale. Let's do reverse scaling and find out what it is. So you've got this like a battleship Missouri that's like 1/542 scale. Like, okay, fair enough. So they make another model of, say, something else in its class, the New Jersey, right? Okay, so it's a weird scale, but at least they can make a couple of ships so you can sit them side by side and see what they look like. No, it'd be a totally different scale. Just stuff that doesn't go with anything. And all of those molds got bought out by a company, created this company called Atlantis. And yeah, they're made in the USA, but they're also bullshit. They're like old models that are like horrible, you know? Store has a funny smell. It's the blue hair. It's the dye they use in their blue hair. Those old ladies with a perm. Smells funny. Um, the problem I have with that store, with the one we have here, it's always disheveled. It's like Walmart on a bad day. It's like, it's just always disheveled. I don't like going to disheveled places, man. I get like, you know, I get antsy. Yeah. Rick, does your game room ever disheveled? Maybe a little bit, and then you fix it. Like, I got a lot of stuff on my work table, and this is got to be like solved soon because I'm going to be like, I'm going to get like the hives. I don't get hives, but it's like you're constantly distracted. You have all these things going, hey, 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 over here. And you go, huh? Oh, never mind. It's just me just sitting here out of place. It's just like all these things that just constantly distract your attention. Never did like the place. Um, it's probably a great place to pick up somebody who's the mother of a cougar. I start getting things put back in place immediately at the end of a final game. Yeah, it's for, and I'm not a neat freak by any stretch of the imagination, but I hate chaos because with chaos, you're constantly being distracted by shit that shouldn't be there in the first place. Um, like I've seen these pictures of these people's hobby work area. I don't know how these people are still breathing. I wouldn't get anything done, I wouldn't get anything done. You like the cougar thing, right? Oh, so Justin, you don't have TV, do you? I think you don't have TV, and there's no reason to have television. But there's a stand-up comedian we saw recently that was really, really funny, and he was old school, like you know, back how people were when I grew up, where you just made fun of everybody. Now everybody's like, But what was his name? Andrew Schultz, and He's got a Netflix one that just came out last year in 2024. It's really, really funny. I recommend that if you want to see that. We saw it the other night, kind of by mistake, and man, we laughed. Don't watch it with your kids. If you have kids, you have TV, no cable. Yeah, well, you're not missing anything. I don't have cable. I haven't had cable since a long time. We just have a couple of subscription services, which we need to do a better job of watching or just discontinuing them. But I'm trying to watch. I'm trying to do TV night almost every night with the wife because I have time to do that and do the hobby. It's not like I got to be in my little alcove here all night. You know, like that's what we did first, and then I went on here. I'm like, I don't need to start my show at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I can start at 7:30. We'll still be okay. 92-inch TV. You know, we got an 85, I think is what it is, when we bought a new one. But it doesn't look that big because it's on a huge wall, you know? So it's like, if I'd gotten me like a 60, it'd look like a postage stamp, you know? And that's the thing about the human body that sucks, is no matter what size TV you got, in a week, you're used to it. It could be the size of a football stadium. And then, a week later, you're like, that's the size TV you got. But, that's how we adapted and didn't die in the Ice Age. Well, that's my theory anyways. But, that kind of sucks about the human body. You get used to whatever it is that you have. But, yeah, we needed a TV, so you might as well get one. Yeah, I think after 85 just got astronomical. But TVs are one of the few things, as time has gone on in the last 20 years, they've gone down in price. They really have. But I wish TV, I don't understand. I don't know that there's that many people that watch TV that much. I mean, you say like, you don't have cable, 20 years ago, you'd be a rarity. But not anymore. I mean, I totally get it. There's so many things to watch now that aren't cable and stuff. I mean, I rarely watch it. I'm not a movie person. I don't mind watching movies, but I certainly don't go and watch them over and over again and memorize the lines. And that's not me. I certainly don't go to the movies. That's a waste of money. It's like GPS not needed. I use GPS for cops. I use Waze for cops. I live in this country fried little town, and there's not enough crime and too many cops, so they're always like, it's like a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone, and you could easily go 70 in. So I don't. Joke's on them. I put cruise control on. You're not getting me for that. You're going to have to get your donut money from somebody else, pal. I'm not contributing to that. So I've Waze up all the time. I report them. There's a cop over here. Go do something useful, man. Because they're always worried about people that are going like 4 or 5 miles an hour over. Not the people that are driving erratically. Not the people that are driving with their head in the phone. Real dangerous shit, right? The safest way to drive is drive with the flow. Everybody's going 55 miles an hour, go 55 miles an hour. If you're going 40, you're going to get killed. You're a nuisance. You remember when Blockbuster was all the rage? Oh, yeah. And they had that one aisle. Ooh, going into the dirty aisle at Blockbuster. I'm pretty sure Blockbuster put themselves out of business with that whole nonsense of charging you, the late fees. Please be kind, rewind. Four moves for the weekend. Yeah, I say that wasn't that long ago. And what I mean by that is I remember that well. That's code for I remember that well. I mean, I remember everything really well from 1990 until now. 80s, I remember most things. 70s, I don't remember most things, and I'm glad. Because people wore some fucked up things in the 70s. Not me. I wore whatever my mom picked out for me, because in the 1970s, my mama dressed me. She didn't dress me, but she picked out what I was going to wear. I'm fucking 7 years old, Blockbuster was doomed. You always had cute girls working there. Unlike Starbucks. Ooh. You remember 1987? That's it. Did you just come back? You don't remember anything before 1987? I remember 1987 really well. You didn't see the Challenger blow up? Well, you're in Michigan. Of course, you're not going to see it. Born in 78. Okay, so you remember things when you were 9, right? Did I do that math right? No, 11. I remember Blockbuster. I'm like, I want to get a console, right? I wanted to get a console because I'd had a computer, and after about 3 years, I couldn't run anything. So I'm like, do I want to get a PlayStation? Do I want to get an Xbox? Well, I'll rent them both because you could rent them, right? And that was perfect because you could rent a console with a couple games and realize whether you want it or not. And I hate to say it, Rick, but Xbox beat out PlayStation for me because they just had games that were like the ones I wanted to play. But yeah, you could rent them both. I think those are the two you could rent them. I'm pretty sure you could rent a Nintendo something or another, but I've never been a Nintendo fan. Those Japanese are too pacifist now. I know what. We will be suicidal, and in 80 years, we won't have any games that have any violence in them. We'll drive around little carts with dragons and pick up mushrooms. I have one question, Master. What? How you say you a sissy boy now in Japanese? Oh man. And the Japanese, I got one big gripe with the Japanese. They have such a cool culture of potential historical movies, and they don't do any of that stuff. I mean, just imagine how many like really cool samurai stuff they could do. I mean, because the samurai stuff goes back thousands of years, okay? And they could be doing all that stuff, and instead they do, schoolgirls with Uzis, like, or zombie shit, Far Cry games. I don't think I played one of them. I don't think I played one of them. I may have played like the demo of one of them, but I certainly know what they are. Japanese hobby shops, those are probably great. I mean, the Japanese models are the freaking best models out there, you know. Now, I haven't encountered any anime that I like. Well, unless you consider that very first cartoon that I watched in 1970s anime, which I guess it technically is, Battle of the Planets. But anything else I've seen from Japan, I'm like, this is just weird, man. You guys are weird. You guys have so much cool stuff you could be doing, and you're not doing that. I love Japanese shit. I couldn't imagine driving a car that wasn't Japanese. I don't know what the hell that's like. All right, be right back. I need to get a soda. Yeah, the gold standard, at least back in the day, the gold standard of models was Tamiya. I mean nobody touched them. I mean, Hasegawas were great. Hasegawas were a piece of shit compared to Tamiya. Tamiya was had freaking humor in there, had little cartoons in there. And little cartoons, and they were done in the right style. It wasn't like, we'll just throw cartoons in there. Like, no, they gotta work with what's going on there. But it's really interesting because Hasegawa, Fujimi, Tamiya, all of them, they go and do armor. They make German, 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 German. Oh, a few American things. No Japanese, or like one tank. That's it. Now, when they go and do ships, it's all Japanese, 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 Japanese. It's all Japanese ships. Nothing else. Like, dude, man, you have to have like balance, Like, if you're gonna do a bunch of Japanese, you gotta do a lot of Americans, I would think. I mean, I don't want to build all of one nation and not have it compared to something else. That seems kind of silly, you know. But I'm something that if I'm gonna build German stuff, then I'm gonna build Americans or Soviets or whatever. So you can compare, okay, these guys look like this over here, and these guys look like that over there. And if you're gonna, fight a battle, you need each other to, need some antagonism. And some people I've heard complain, well, I don't like Tamiya models very good. Much. Well, why don't you like Tamiya models? Well, there's not challenging. What do you mean they're not challenging? They go together too well. Time out. Huh? So why don't you buy a? Oh well, it's no. It's not challenging enough to buy this new car. Why? Well, because it never breaks down. Like, some of us have a job where we have things that go sideways all the time. I don't want to pay for the privilege of having more of that bullshit happen to me on my own time while I'm not on the clock. Okay? Like, I want things to go pretty well when I'm not, when I'm paying for them out of my pocket. And call me crazy, but that's, I kind of expect that. So I got to deal with my own problems at work and somebody else's undoings when I'm not, no. Oh, they go together too well. Oh, I don't like this vehicle. Why? It never breaks down. What the hell's wrong with you, man? Get out of here. I don't like going on that airline. Why? Their planes never crash. What's wrong with you? I'm the same way. I don't like spending money. That's right. You know? Or what I like to say, just because you don't value my time doesn't mean I don't. Like, why waste my time consistently, having to fix other people's stuff? Okay, this is probably as much as we're going to fade this one. Now, let's do this. And we also have another trick up our sleeve. And that trick up our sleeve is, I got like this little like grass and stuff, almost like mini trees that you can put over these things like they're camouflage. Because, the Germans, by this time in 1944, if there's any aircraft in the air, it's not theirs. So you got to hide the stuff. You got to move at night. You got to keep a low profile because I don't know that Normandy would have gone well. It certainly wouldn't have gone as well for the Allies if the aircraft was in parity. If it wasn't total Allied air superiority over Normandy. I'm reading this book right now that takes place in Tunisia, and even in Tunisia, when the Americans after Operation Torch, they're getting attacked by Stukas and stuff like that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there wasn't complete Allied air superiority in Tunisia, but there wasn't. All right. Let's go ahead and blackline this guy. It's like, you're blacklisted. You've been blacklined. What's the book called? It's called An Army at Dawn. I know you don't like spending money, but if you like books and you have difficult getting through them, I recommend Audible, because I've listened to a lot of books that I would have never finished had I not had that service. But and there's 3 in the series, but they're really, really detailed, and they have a lot of information in there that's just unique, that you don't read anywhere else. Really, I don't think I was using this one. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was using this one. And even though I'm a World War II junkie, I'm really surprised at the kind of stuff that I've come across that I had no idea about. And that's kind of cool, because it's like, a mini story that I didn't know about within a larger one. But I picked up something today on a whim. I'll talk about it tomorrow morning when somebody who turned me on to it is on. But I picked up the scenario book on a, man, I love PDF stuff, because you can just like get it immediately. That's about the Valley Pocket, which is basically the last battle they had in Normandy before the trap shut and they captured a bunch of Germans. It was in August. And there's some interesting scenarios in there, in that skirmish campaigns. And some of them have some SS troops. And I don't have any SS guys yet. Painted. There's no SS guys I've painted. So maybe in the future, I don't have to paint a whole lot of them for some of the scenarios. A squad or so. So I really want to try my hand at doing some of that camouflage. Just for a challenge. I'm sure I'm gonna knock it out of the park, because there's so many people out there that are really good at painting that have been they've been nice enough to show, basically how they do it. That's why I'm not afraid of showing everything that I do on here, because it might benefit somebody. And I've gotten a lot of like free tips from stuff I've seen on the internet as well. So my way of just giving back. Now maybe you guys will run into some kind of hiccup that's just driving you crazy. Like, hey, let's do it. We'll show you how to get out of this jam that you're in. It's called An Army at Dawn. And it's one of 3 parts, because the other one is just Sicily and Italy. And then the one after that is Normandy, is the France one. But it has a lot of tactical detail in it, which is what I want out of it. That's the flavor profile I like. So we'll be on tomorrow morning for a shorter session than normal, longer than a normal session on a work day, but shorter than our normal weekend session. So I've got to go take the wife's car in for a PM. You into U-boats and battleships? I used to be. The first thing I got into was surface vessels of the Second World War. I had about 500 of them in 1/2400 scale. They didn't look great, because I did them when I was in my late teens, early 20s. There was no internet, so you can't share tips with other people. So a bit primitive by today's standards, but that's what we used to play. We used to play, I particularly like the Mediterranean. I particularly like the British and the Italians going at it. Convoy actions, that sort of thing. And I had about 500 of them. And I didn't have them all painted, but I probably had 275, almost 300 painted. So, but that's what I started in the mid 80s collecting, from GHQ and CNC but I sold those. I sold them all on eBay in the early 2000s. Do I have any left? I I kept a couple that look good, but I'm not sure where they are. They're somewhere. I didn't keep the ones that didn't look good. I have a couple. I kept a couple that are painted kind of in my modern style. But the problem about ship combat is a lot of people aren't into it. I don't know why, but the ship stuff isn't really interesting to most people from a war game standpoint. It's the first thing I got into about World War II. The German surface raiders and the Bismarck and all that stuff and hunting them down. I really got into that. That and my dad had this really cool coffee table book that had all the battleships and stuff. I'm not an aircraft carrier fan. Aircraft carriers suck from a gaming standpoint. But that doesn't mean I didn't have any aircraft carriers. It just means that, you know, they can avoid combat at will to a good degree. So if you're going to avoid combat, why are we playing a war game? You know. I mean, I'm a pacifist in real life, but on the board, in a war game, yeah, I want to see death and destruction. That's what I'm here for. I don't want real people getting killed, but virtual people, yeah, let's assassinate the crap out of those guys. You know. But planes is definitely my weak point because, you know, other than a couple of flight simulators I played 20 years ago, I really haven't played any games with planes in them. They're not really practical because they end up being kind of a strategic game, or they move too slow, or you know. It doesn't mean I don't like planes. It doesn't mean I don't like building them. But there's part of this participation thing. There's part of this I can participate in the action by, you know, playing a game with them. That if I'm not playing a game with them, I can't really participate. Korean jungle stuff. Korean jungle? Like Korean War? I got some Japanese stuff, but they they didn't fight in Korea. Not in the Second World War. That's World War One stuff. But jungle stuff, I got probably a platoon's worth of Japanese, but they haven't been painted. The figures are really cool. I just haven't painted them yet. The Japanese just really stink when it comes to, you know, armor. It's not very good at all. Yeah, the Korean War just never interested me. How can you say? Well, I can't be into everything. It just it doesn't capture my fancy. You know, if I was going to do something modern, I'd rather do Vietnam. I don't really want to do Vietnam. I don't think I've even seen a Korean War movie. I've seen Vietnam movies. I haven't seen a Korean War movie. I'm pretty certain I haven't seen one. I lose interest when there's Chinese and communists involved, like communist Chinese. I'm like, nah, I don't want to see that. I just doesn't interest me. Can't relate. Thin Red Line. You know that's out on Amazon. and I need to give it a watch because I'm one of those people that didn't like the movie at all. But it's one of those that 75% of the people have the same opinion I have. 25% think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I got to find out what the hell those people are smoking. So I got to watch it again. But I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm willing to give it another shot, or at least attempt to give it another shot. I remember hating that movie though. You know, my idea of a war movie is, I want a war movie to be like, stuff that doesn't run anymore in action and like tactics. And if it doesn't have that, I'm not interested in in anything else. That's my tie-in for that. But most people, there are some devout people that are like, oh, it's the best war movie ever. But it's definitely not the majority opinion. And I was just kind of surfing around when we were looking for that stand-up, and I saw that movie was on. I'm like, oh shit, I need to see that again. I won't watch it a third time unless I like it. It just depends, what is it? What's the reason you watch a war movie? You know, Enemy at the Gate. Enemy at the Gate has some stuff that in it that's pretty cool, and then it has some stuff in it that's just like stupid. The first thing is like one of those movies like nobody's got a Russian accent. Like, come on, man. Actually, what's his name does have a Russian accent. Uh, Ron Perlman, I think, has a Russian accent in it. But there'd be like fighting in a factory, and then the next room over, you couldn't even hear it. So that was kind of weird. Um, the thing is you take something like Enemy at the Gates, and that's as good as a general rule. That's as good as Hollywood's going to be able to do at a war movie. You're not going to get better than that. Yeah, you're going to get occasionally get a movie that's better than that, but you got to wait 50 years for something like that to happen. Most of the time, if you get a war movie that's like Enemy at the Gate, that's like as good as Hollywood can do because they always want to twist things in weird places or put actors in it that shouldn't be, or miss obvious things, or just kind of they have a different agenda than we want. We want the people to be interested in tell a cool story and learn something, and they just want to make a quick buck. And I don't blame them. That's kind of like their, you know, the whole reason of making it in the first place. We want to be entertained, and they want to make money because that's what they do for a living. But something like Enemy Gate at the Gate, that's going to be, what you're going to expect from Hollywood. They're not going to be able to do better than that. There's going to be like glaring errors, or. That's as good as they're going to be able to do. But the German Stalingrad movie is much better than that. But the German Stalingrad movie also has some boring parts in it. Like, I'd say half the movie, I want to say like half the movie involves them, basically at the bitter end and then them being captured. Okay, that's all fine and dandy, but that's not what I came here for. It does have some good scenes in it. Um, I think the combat scenes in Generation War are better than just about everything in any World War II war movie. I really like Generation War. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's like three movies. It's like Band of Brothers meets Friends. That's probably not a good selling point, but you definitely need to see it. It's definitely a very good movie if you haven't seen it. Ever see Zulu? Once. I never saw the sequel to it. You know, I'm not really interested in that period. I mean, I like Michael Caine. I mean, you put Michael Caine and stuff, I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. It's got Michael Caine in it. But I don't think it's something I'd see twice. I've never seen Zulu Dawn, or I think there's a couple of Zulu movies. The one I've seen is the one that's Drift. Then there's the other one that focuses on Islandavala, or however you say that place. How are we looking comparison wise? I know we still have to do a little bit more highlighting on it. Yeah, we're on the right track. We're on the right track for that one. What time is it? 9:15. Yeah, it looks a lot better with the camouflage being subtle than how it was before. But that's why I kind of went in kind of strong. I went in kind of strong with a camo so that after I dry brush, it's still there. Like there's something to look at. Instead of like, oh, well, you just covered all of it and there's nothing to see. You know, these models, these 3D printed half tracks, look so much better painted than unpainted because they actually have a lot of. First of all, they're a Model D half track. They don't have as many details as some of the other ones. They made them specifically so to cut down on the production to make it easier for them to be produced. So they got less edges, they got less cool angles than some of the other versions, but they actually have some nice crisp detailing to them. Especially this little set of rivets that they got along the side here. It's it's really it's well done and they're evenly done. It wasn't like they're misshapen, or sometimes you get some things that are kind of like misshapen or something like that. It doesn't work so well. Yeah, I haven't seen Zoom in a long time. I actually I don't even know when I saw it, but I have seen it, but only once. Same thing like Waterloo. I've only seen Waterloo one time. I'm not one of them nappy-headed people. I haven't seen it. You nappy-headed gamer. Yes, I do have someone 3D. Well, so what happened with this is there's this guy that I met on the internet. No, I've been interacting with him back and forth for this hobby in this scale. And he found out I was going to be in Spain, so he wanted to meet me. So we found this dark out. No, no, I met him. He's not really nice guy, family guy, and and he brought me these half tracks. He's like, "Here, I got some stuff for you." I'm like, "Okay." Well, I'm like, let's work him in. Let's work him into the painting queue. If he's nice enough to give them to me, I can at least paint them. Bring him some joy in seeing what they look like. You know, why not, right? So, yeah, I sat down. He's like, hey, we'll just talk for a little bit. Next thing you know, I've been talking to him for like 3 hours, and he's like somebody I've known my whole life. So that was pretty cool. Really cool guy. But he 3D prints. But the other guy that did all my desert stuff, yeah, he's Iron Horse Collectibles guy. His stuff is the prints he has access to are incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I'm glad I was able to do him justice. I have a model of the Tiger One that I've had for 30 years. And it's the model of it is so stinking nice. Yes, he does have a website. It's called Iron Horse Collectibles. And he doesn't, here's the really cool thing about him. He can print in any scale. So he'll be like, there'll be examples of stuff on there. He can print it in 15 millimeter, 20, 28, whatever you want him to do. Like the desert stuff that I did, those are designed for 28 millimeter. So he took that and downsized it for me. And the designer's like, man, I designed these things to be 28 millimeter. These print really well in 20. I said, well, I'm not going to do 28 millimeter. But he can do 15s, And he prints pretty quick. And he does resin, which is hard to find here in the States. At least for, it was very difficult to find somebody that did stuff in resin. Usually there's lots of people in the UK that do it, and I'm absolutely fine giving UK money. It's not about that. It's just the shipping just rapes you. And I'm not saying like I'm getting raped by the person who's painting it for me, like they're pocketing the money. I say it's really expensive to ship things overseas, and that wasn't the case 6 years ago. So I got to find somebody in the state. I mean, the shipping in the States is expensive enough as it is. So I went to the designer's website, and he recommended, hey, he partners in with these guys with different printers, and the one printer he partners with, or he does business with, is this guy, this Iron Horse Collectibles. That's how I found out about him. Great day, this looks good. I don't know if other people do this. This dry brush or the base color over the camouflage. Man, it softens the hell out of everything. It makes it look freaking right. Now there's some camouflage schemes that if you paint them accurately, the way they're depicted, it's gonna look like shit because the original looks like shit. But man, I'm really happy with the way this looks. Well, that's what's going to keep me coming back for more. Be really happy with how things turn out for me. It's all well and good if other people like it, but if you as a creator do not like it, you're not going to create more of that. You're going to be like, you know what? I could do something that's a lot less work to be not frustrated. So yeah, he has a website. Check him out. Iron Horse Collectibles. And on there, it'll show all the stuff that he has access to printing. As a matter of fact, I was asking him, I said, man, it should be nice if somebody would make a model of a such and such. So he ended up asking somebody, and they made this model. I should get it painted because you're like, man, I was the catalyst for them to creating this friggin' model. Where is it? This A13. We'll come back to it when we go back to the desert. This A13 didn't exist. This particular model of the A13 did not exist. And he went and had somebody design it, and he printed it. It's beautiful. So we'll come back to it shortly. But I'm enjoying mixing things up. I'm enjoying like, all right, enough of the desert for a little while. Let's go somewhere else for a little bit. And I don't have really a time frame where I have to get these things done by. So I like mixing it up. Because maybe somebody's not into the desert stuff. Well, wait a little bit. We'll come back and do, Russian front, or we'll do, Western or what have you. Whereas if I was doing ancients, I couldn't do that. I needed every single waking second to work towards my next goal, or I'd run out of time. I'm like, I don't want to do that shit anymore. That's too unpleasant. Found it, yeah. Yeah, Chad's a real good guy. He's in Indiana. So I've ordered from him 4 or 5 times. That's the thing. You could get something 3D printed in the UK, but to make it worth your while, you got to order like $200 worth of stuff. And I'm like, I'm I'm just not a guy who's going to order $200 worth of stuff. So if I get too much stuff, I'm like, that's cool, but I'm not interested in that. I want to get something different. I can get overwhelmed. And like, none of it is stuff you need. So why do you need to spend that kind of money, especially on somebody you've never done business with them before? Because there's a little bit of a risk. There's part of a risk that, you go and you find somebody online and you've never done business with them before. Like, all right, let me give them the first order $200. Like, that's, I mean, it's only $200, but it's a lot of money for your hobby, that I don't need. Like, I don't need these items. It's not like, oh, I got to go to a funeral and I need a suit. Well, you fucking buy the suit, right? But you don't need any of this stuff. So just kind of make it difficult, to take that much of a risk on something like that. All right, now we're going to blackline this guy. Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of different things. And you do 15s, like those two companies all the way at the bottom. If you look, I think there's like two columns. One of them is like Tiger Ace 1945, and the other one is, I don't remember, but they're all the way at the bottom. Those two guys are all 15 millimeter stuff. As a matter of fact, some of that stuff doesn't scale up really well. And like the one on the left, the one that's not Tiger Ace, they literally make everything. Like they make every single thing you want. As long as it was a real vehicle. That guy has access to everything. I mean, obscure stuff like French half tracks and things like that. Not like, oh, they make a Yag Tiger. Everybody makes a freaking Yag Tiger. I'm talking about obscure things. Yeah, 4, 5, 6 years ago, you could order from Britain, and the shipping cost the same as the U.S. I mean, you had the exchange rate issue, so it cost us 20% more than it would within the States, but that's because of the exchange rate. And I usually would get stuff from the UK quicker than I would from a US supplier. Which makes me wonder, what the hell are these slack jaws in here, What the hell are they doing here instead of getting my freaking model out? Like people in the UK can do it. What's wrong with these slackers here? Speak of slack jaw. Hey, there's one guy went up today. He had to do something. The way his load was strapped down was different, so it wasn't going to work. And I told him what he needed to do, and he just sat there like, and I just went up to him. I said, "Did you get it?" And I went, like, you freaking dumbass. Get the fuck out of here. This is what you need done. You don't get your paperwork. You're going to break shit. Slackjaw. The Mouth Agape Brigade. Hopefully you're not one of those folks that does that. I swear that didn't happen before. They didn't used to be, when I was growing up, people that just walk around with their mouth agape. It must be from watching too much TikTok. Man, I've been on here 2 hours. Seems like I've been on here longer. Well, with any luck, we can get this last half track up to the same level these other guys are. That would be pretty freaking awesome tonight. I'm gonna have trouble going to sleep. A cup of coffee and then a Coke of unusual size. Can't stand things like TikTok. Me neither. I mean, they give people ADD, man. It's like too fast. Like, man, slow it down a little bit. Like, you can have 3 minutes of my time. You don't need to be like, okay, we're gone in 12 seconds. Like, dude, man, like, why are you rushing me? Why are you rushing me, comrade? Or like those videos would be an ad for something, like they're trying to sell breath mints. It wouldn't be an ad for breath mints, but let's say they're trying to sell breath mints. So they have somebody talking, and the same person is talking, and it's so fast paced, they're almost interrupting themselves. Like you could try some of these breath mints and they're good for you, but it just rolls like there's like no space in there in between each sentence. And it's like, why are you rushing me so much? Oh, well, you got to get it in before people leave. I'm like, are people that like handicapped that they can't spend, an extra half of a millisecond listening to this? I mean, I know it's edited that way, so there's like no like empty space in the conversation, but it's like, man, I feel like it's rushing me. I swear it creates issues in people that didn't exist when I was growing up. Pervitin breath mint. Exactly. Pervitin inhalers. German marching powder. So I came over at lunchtime and I was looking through some of my skirmish books. And one thing that struck me was that, because remember, like 3 years ago, I didn't have any vehicles, right? I had them, but I didn't have any painted. And I'm like, man, I need this vehicle for this scenario, this one for that one. I go and look at some of these scenarios, and I'm like, I got all these vehicles. I got the vehicles for that side too. I got so many freaking vehicles. I just need infantry. I have a fair amount of if the scenario calls for, a fair amount of Americans and Germans, I got them. I got guys painted and they're painted well, and they're good to go. But if I have other stuff, Russians, I have one squad and some odds and ends of Russians, and they're one manufacturer that I cannot stand. I don't know how I painted them. Shame on me. I can't stand FAA. I don't know that I'm ever going to paint another FAA figure. I dislike them so much. It's one of those, just the style they're done in. I'm like, I don't care how good a job I do painting them. The sculpting is just not my style. And it's funny because I may dislike something, there'll be somebody out there that just thinks this just the best thing since sliced bread. But I never liked their gaunt cheekbone looking thing. They just look weird. There aren't people running around with cheekbones of that size. And same thing happened with Britannia. I mean, Britannia used to advertise everywhere, in every war game magazine. And I think old man Britannia probably died and he sold it off to somebody else. Century Models or somebody. But they had guys that every single guy had the same look. Looked like a cross between James Coburn and Simon Cowell. Everybody looked the same. Didn't matter if they were Japanese, African Corps, U.S. infantrymen, Russians, everybody had the same face. Simon Cowell and James Coburn, yeah. That's what it looked like. And it's a problem. It's a problem if you have a figure that has a very unique look, and every single figure in your entire army has the same look. Like, just imagine you're building an army, right? And every face looks like Willem Dafoe. You got a problem, man. Willem Dafoe's an unusual looking person that you don't see on the street. You don't want a whole army with everybody that looks the same way. I used to say this all the time about like Essex miniatures. Essex miniatures would make like these knights, and the knights would be in these poses that are really, 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 really unique. Like they would hold their lances instead of holding a lance like this, or in a normal position, they would hold it like they would be facing one way and the lance would be out like this. So they'd be looking at 10 o'clock and their lance would be at 3 o'clock. It's an unusual position to catch somebody in that. And, one guy isn't a problem. You got 30 guys in that same pose. It's awkward. It's really, really awkward. So, but that's why they make a lot of different figure companies, because you can find one that you have something that interests you. Okay, now this is the command one. Now this actually has two radios that are going to come up here. It's going to have two antennas. The original radio wagon, I forget what the hell it's called, Funkenwagen probably. We got the Funk. Yep, these guys, the radio half track. The original one of these would have had this big antenna on it, like a bed spring, like the German armored car. Let me pull one of these out here, like this. Almost like a bed spring would have that. But this is the later version of the half track, and they've done away with this. There's more primitive radio transmitter or whatever, antenna, whatever you want to call it. The Purposive Definite. All right, I'm going to be right back. I need to use little boy's room. Be right back in a jiff. All right, now one of the things that I'm probably going to do with one of these half tracks, probably one of the repaints, probably one of these. I don't know which one. I'm going to make a platoon leader's vehicle out of it. And by doing that, we're going to replace the machine gun up here with a 37 millimeter anti-tank gun. They would carry this weapon in here. Now, they also carry basically cut down versions of it. So we're probably gonna have to take one of these 3D prints and cut it down. Jose gave me a shitload of these, so you know I certainly could spare one of them to do that because it's a useful vehicle to have. And I would just just remove this and put the 37 on it. Early in the war, with the gray vehicles, they would have the entire gun shield, but later in the war, it would be a cut down gun shield, and like half of it would be missing. I believe it's missing on this side. So in other words, the side that still has the gun sight and everything, for the gunner side, that one would still have the gun shield, but this side, the loaders wouldn't have it. So that's definitely something that is probably something I'm going to do with one of the half tracks to make it a platoon leader's vehicle. You know, because then you could have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the platoon leader's vehicle be another one. Plus, you know, you got a specialized radio one. You've got one with that's got the engineering equipment. You got the one that's the mortar, and the one that's got the 75 millimeter howitzer. Not calling that a howitzer is not accurate. Not a howitzer, but it's not an infantry gun either. It's just the same gun that was in the Panzer IV earlier in the war. 24 caliber 75 millimeter gun. Howitzer makes it sound like does most of its indirect. I guess it could fire indirect, but it was pretty much direct 75 millimeter. You know, like those, hey, there's guys in that house. Let's get rid of the house. Bam, you know. House over. Game over. All right. So, what is left? I mean, obviously there's some tinkering, but getting these all to the same type of point. And these, of course, have removable tracks and steering wheels also. So those will they already come black, so we'll just have to dry brush them. All right, this guy right here. Let's see if we got enough oomph to get this guy done, and then everything will be at least to an equivalent level. So again, we're going to mix these two colors together. It's kind of a complex paint scheme on here, so I don't want to undo that. Ever paint a dragon? You know, I want to say I came close to painting a dragon, but no, I don't think so. I have painted some fantasy stuff, but not very many. I had some um, Games Foundry set it all figures that I bought in the late 80s. Because, hey, when those came out, those were cool. Like they told you what the figure was on a little stand, right? They were like ahead of their time. But some things Games Workshop did, they never looked right to me. Like I never liked their trolls. Some of the dragons look weird. I much prefer the Ralpartha type trolls. You know, the guys that look like a Rick. You got any of those guys? The Ralpartha type trolls that look like the guy with a really long corncob nose. They just look more like what I expect them to be like. You have a dragon inbuilt? I definitely have some old Ralpartha metal figures. You know what I'm talking about? There's like this model of a troll, right? And he had like this corncob nose, like really, really long and like narrow. And he had like this hair that was like swept back, almost like a gall. You know, like the ones the Romans fought. They would put lime in their hair, like to stiffen it. And that was a cool figure. And he looked like he had like a corncob nose. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was cool. It was cool looking. Um, that's what the troll is supposed to look like, not yet another creature that Games Workshops decides it's, oh yeah, they're also green. Like, you know, you already got goblins, you already got orcs. You don't need any more green skins. And you got plenty of those. Like, mix it up, lads. Miniatures from the 1980s, yeah. Yeah, some of them look, well, the styling on them, some of their figures are just like weird poses. Like, I have this sword and I don't really want to use it. Like, you know, come on, like, be aggressive. I came here to kill monsters, not, find out where my 1/16th whale in my genealogy comes from. The 80s, when everybody wanted to play a human, not some misunderstood half warlock ballerina slash, bard. Ballerina bard warlock that's half octopus. Like what the hell's wrong with you, man? Battletech. I had a lot of them. I had a lot of Battletech figures. Those are the first things I sold on eBay because we just weren't playing Battletech. And I would say that those Battletech figures were probably painted better than my naval stuff because they were all like dry brushed. Napoleon, never had any Napoleonic stuff. Doesn't interest me. Mitch is the one that likes the Napoleon stuff. It never did anything for me. Oh yeah, I got ancient Greece, I got ancient Romans, I got medieval art, I got medieval guys, all in 15s. All right, we're gonna black line this, get it up to this level, and then we're for the night. Yeah. But that BattleTech game on the computer is freaking awesome. Whatever the hell it's called. Mech Warrior or whatever. But one of the designers of BattleTech was on the team for that game. So that's why it's so damn good. I mean, I knew how to play the game immediately when I got it. I'm like, oh, this is like the real game, but it takes care of all the heat for you. Like, cool. Yeah, we would always play BattleTech with the miniatures, and we would play them on like a regular battlefield, and we just did 1 inch was a hex. So in other words, we wouldn't play on a hex. It would just free form. We did that a fair amount. Yep, that was one of those things I wanted to get into, and they discontinued it before I ever got my hands on it. It was called War, and it was one of those things that I saw in a White Dwarf magazine. And I'm like, man, I'd like to play that. And by the time I found out about it, they discontinued it. And they also had the Car Wars game called Dark Future. They're bringing it back. I hate their business model. It's not consumer friendly. I mean, maybe it's good for like their stockholders, but not for the rest of us. Yeah, they want you to invest a lot of time and dollars into doing something, and then they don't even support their own system. Like they leave it hanging. They brought back Blood Bowl. It never interested me. I know several people that are. It's a very popular game. I never played it. Never interested me. Like one of the silliest ideas I've ever seen in a game. And if you're a fan of this, I'm sorry, but it's just something that would never appeal to me. Is this game called? And I want to say it's called Slaughter Who, and it's basically Napoleonics, but like the orcs are the Prussians and the elves are the French and the dwarves are the British. And I'm like, that's just stupid. Just like, if you're gonna play a fantasy game, play a fantasy game, but not like it's historic-y. Like that's just dumb as hell. It does not appeal to me in 1,000 years. I wouldn't even play that. And I'm fine playing fantasy games. Just don't do that kind of thing. It just turns me right off. You built a snotling team. That's the Kabols, right? That's the Kabul equivalent. Smaller than goblins. Always have a runny nose. Sounds like. Why he's got sniffling so much? Oh, he's a snotling. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I'll make these things pop. A lot of people really like that game. I've never gotten a chance to play it. I mean Blood Bowl, not the other one that I mentioned. Okay, I'm actually going to stop for the night. So we'll be back in the morning. Oh, you left. Okay. Well, we'll be back in the morning to continue on the German half-trackdom here. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.